Call this meeting to order. Once again, if you haven't signed in, please sign in before we start. I'd like to ask Ms. Marshall to call the roll.
Ross.
Here.
White.
Yes. Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Robinson.
Here.
Gaines.
Yes, here.
Baggett.
Here.
Height.
Here.
And Witcher.
Present.
A quorum is present, Your Honor.
Ward 4 will lead us in prayer and pledge.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for shining your light on our souls. Thank you for your love. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to serve the public. Help us to make wise decisions. In the name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So moved.
Second.
Just kind of like to, Mayor Hayes is out of town, and so I get to be mayor tonight. But something I always wondered, too, is how do you determine who gets to be mayor up here when the mayor who gets to act as mayor? In the city council, there's certain months, and if the mayor is absent in that month, then that ward is responsible for being acting mayor. And when this month was Ward 1's month, and that's why we get to be mayor this month. So y'all bear with us. This is the first time for me, and we'll get through this. Let's see, on the minutes, do we have a motion on the minutes?
Got a motion to second.
We do?
Ross.
Call the roll.
Here?
White.
Yes.
White.
Here.
Taylor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Baggett.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
On communications, we have a blanket motion on 1 through 8. Does anybody have anything they want
I'd like to
read?
have number 6 read in its entirety.
Number 9
So we
and
have,
number 2.
so we need 2, 6, and 9 read. Anybody else? Okay, do we have a blanket motion on the other communications?
Second.
Have a vote? Can we call for vote?
Ross.
Yes?
White.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Baggett.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Just 1 second. Let me get number 2. You want number 2 in its entirety?
Yes.
And greetings from Mr. Yates. Greetings, Mr. Yates. We appreciate you taking the opportunity to attend our Neighborhood Association meeting, Monday, August the 17th. You were clear and precise on your goals and recommendations for the Veterans Memorial. We feel that the location of 5501 MacArthur Drive is a prime location for such memorial. Therefore, members of the Rose City Neighborhood Association support you in your endeavors in regards to the Veterans Memorial. Sincerely, Terry Eslick, President of the Rose City Neighborhood Association.
Move to accept and file.
So move.
I think.
Ross.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Baggett.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Number 6, please.
This is from Al Ostergaard, number 1 Heritage Park Circle, regarding the RV parking. I greatly respect and appreciate the work you do. You've got our city far ahead of Little Rock in getting things done quickly and effectively. At 6 p.m. September the 8th, I learned of the ordinance passed last December and the proposed ban on 40-foot RV. I agree 100%. Number 1, RVs should not be parked in front of a home, on the yard, or street. Number 2, cars, trucks, boats, trailers, etc. should not be parked on the grass or area of a home, which detract from the cultural look and value of properties. Cars and trucks should be parked only in the driveway and not on the street. I believe it's appropriate for RVs, which are in good condition, to be nicely parked out of the way on hard surfaces by well-kept homes. Here are photos of our home from the North Hills entrance. You wouldn't even see our motorhome unless you looked left at the carport. It is backed up in the front, is even with the carport. Coming from the McCain entrance, nobody would see it. We have had a motorhome parked here for 30 years without any complaint. Ours is a mobile office used 99% for business, seeing clients in all corners of the state: Missouri, Texas, Virginia, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Janice, my wife, has her laptop, printer, and scanner on the table and gets about 150 pages of data for me to analyze each morning. Because of our health, the mobile office is our only means of transportation beyond 45 miles. If further miles, the facilities within a vehicle are a necessity. She is confined to a wheelchair. A lift on the mobile office gets her up to the passenger seat. She drives when I can't. It is used all year, plugged into electricity, loaded quickly with food and clothes. To have it in storage would be dangerous. Having electricity for it is unlikely, so I couldn't use it. Winter rising is very costly in time and not an option. Flying is not an option. A new 40-foot RV costs about a minimum of $200,000. A client from Russellville yesterday said his was in covered storage 3 blocks from the police station, behind a 12-foot heavy fence which was locked. His and 2 others were virtually destroyed by vandals. His had to be taken to the Indiana factory. The reconstruction took 2 months. Our daughter, Cheryl, class of 65, comes about twice a year in her shorter RV and parks in our parking area. She brings us a year's supply of frozen dinners and other food she prepared. This couldn't be carried in a car. Is it fair to prohibit her parking on our paid parking area? I always give far more than I ask. While some of you are probably students, our school system had become a shambles. The board was comprised of John Birch, society members, Bruce Wright was superintendent, and George Miller, principal. Parents were extremely upset, but did nothing. I gathered 5 to 6 people, and we quickly replaced the entire board over 3 years. The school effectiveness rebounded. During this era, the Chamber of Commerce was ineffective and barely able to meet a small payroll. I accepted being president, re-energized it, and had the first annual meeting. 500 attended, and the president of the Missouri Pacific Railroad was our speaker. I was the catalyst to redo our 2 entrances in Heritage Park Circle with John Matthews abandoned. These costs were about $40,000, of which I had $8,000 of my money in it before convincing others to help. Many people call this the entrance to Lakewood. We also maintain city property for 2 blocks on North Hills in McCain. I gave 20 hours a week for years on each of these projects. Let's clean up the city, but not penalize those who are doing right. Respectfully, Al Ostergaard.
Thank you. Move accept and file. Question over here.
I did have a question. There's been some pictures that are passed around. I wondered if Mr. Ostergaard wanted those attached to the record or would like these back.
That's it to the record.
Okay, and since he wasn't at the microphone, I'll just express his interest that he would like them attached to the record, and I'll bring them over to you.
Okay. Ross,
Yes.
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 Robinson.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Baggett.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Communication number 9. Dear Ms. Whippy and City Council members, this is the advice that I will be out of town during our next council meeting on September 14, 2009. Alderwoman Debbie Ross will be presiding over the City Council meeting in my absence. Regarding any legislation that I have sponsored, Alderwoman Ross will be aware of my request concerning the same. I remain sincerely Patrick A. Hayes, Mayor.
Move to accept and file.
Second.
Ross,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Taylor, Robinson,
Yes.
Gaines, Baggett,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
and Witcher.
Yes.
So long the communications.
Right now, we have as presentation, we have Mr. Patrick Scorza with the Mayor's Youth Council. Patrick, would you like to come up? Oh, I said Mr. I am so sorry. Is it Kendrick?
Kendrick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
Kendrick.
okay. Hello, my name is Kendrick Scorza, and I am a former Nickelodeon's Let's Just Play Go Healthy challenger. In 2007, my challenges, struggles, and accomplishments were captured on national television as I learned how to eat right and exercise more. At the time I was featured on Nickelodeon, I was 13 years old and weighed over 200 pounds. I knew I needed to make a change, but did not know how. I was blessed to be given an opportunity to learn healthy habits. As a result of that opportunity, I lost over 40 pounds and was empowered to share what I had learned with other young people. Childhood obesity is a serious problem, and we all have to be a part of the solution. Childhood obesity outranks all other health problems as #1 health concern for children in the United States. According to statistics put out by the Centers for Disease Control, the prevalence of obesity among children aged 6 to 11 more than doubled in the past 20 years, going from 6.5% in 1980 to 17% in 2006. The rate during the same time frame among adolescents aged 12 to 19 more than tripled, increasing from 5% to 17.6%. Since my time on Nickelodeon, I have been accepted on the Alliance for Healthier Generations Youth Advisory Board, where I'm given tools to live healthier and empower others to do the same. Presently, I'm also a member of the North Little Rock East Campus's Student Council and the North Little Rock Mayor's Youth Council. I have created a foundation whose mission is to help young people live healthier lives and create stronger families. Through the support of several agencies and backing by the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, who has designated the month of September as Go Healthy Month, I will be moderating a youth-hosted forum on this Saturday. Registration and lots of fun games begin at 9:30 in the morning at Steps Family Outreach Center in North Little Rock, where the forum will run from 11:30 in the morning till 1 p.m. The forum is a platform to hear the voices of young people. My peers and I, a very diverse group from the North Little Rock School District, will talk about our health accomplishments, encourage and empower each other to take steps toward our own health and help others live healthier. I wish all of you could attend and bring your young people out with you. We also have a healthy lunch prepared by Whole Food Stores. I do hope you will help me spread the word. Individuals can register for the event or get more information at www.eatrightplaywell.org. You can also visit www.empowermetobe.org, where there's tons of information about preventing childhood obesity and creating healthier lifestyles for all children. The Empower Me movement is now over 1 million strong. Thank you.
Kendrick, could I ask you, and thank you very much, where is Steps Family Outreach located?
It's on the corner of 19th and Locust and the Eastgate Terrace.
Okay, hope everybody comes out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Okay, now we're going into, we have some scheduled public hearings. First public hearing is declaring a moratorium on electronic changeable signs. 0957 will convene a public hearing. I do have some people that have signed up for that. 0957 if you're here to speak about it.
Good evening, I'm James Ard. I would like to point out the fact that you're costing some of these people that sell these signs some of their revenue. You also cost one sign company to have to lay people off because of what has been going on. Alderman Baggett, do you recall you wanted to get a sign donated for the North Little Rock Girls Wildcats deal? And when I talked to a gentleman about it, and I told him he could put a sign up advertising his company, he told me real quickly, we can't do anything with electronic signs. So that costs charging Wildcats a free scoreboard. These are the things that you are causing. You're causing people not to have, not as many, but a few people not to be able to have jobs and get laid off. And this is what this is coming to. The people are wanting these electronic signs. You need to let them go ahead and have them and try to work around it and work with them instead of trying to just fix it where you do it the way y'all want to do it. Think about it. Charging Wildcats did not get an electronic scoreboard because they could not put the sign up like they wanted to. Thank you very much. You do remember that, don't you, Mr. Baggett?
My name is Bill Yates. I own a business located at 5501 MacArthur Drive called My Friend's Place. Fortunately, I own an electronic sign. Until I got this electronic sign, people only knew my business by name only. Although it's an additional expense to my business, I believe it's contributed at least 30% increase in sales since I've had it. My Friend's Place is not just a dirty old beer joint. It's a newly refurbished facility that serves tremendous amount of food and drink in a friendly atmosphere. Until the electronic sign was installed, people drove by my place and didn't really realize what we had there and what we did. Now we're able to advertise our food specials and our entertainment, and it has dramatically increased our business. Electronic signage is a wave of the future, just like computers. And it gives the businessman a tremendous ability to succeed in their business. To disallow businesses this great tool of advertisement is to suppress and stagnate business growth within the city. There are adequate city codes to control the operation of electronic signs. And as far as I'm concerned, the Pentecost Church out here can continue to violate those codes at will. I believe your job as elected city officials should help business grow so they can create jobs, so they can pay taxes for you to spend. Is North Little Rock a city of opportunity for business, or is a city where bureaucrats know best?
Thank you. I think that's all that we've had signed up. I see Mr. Patrick Oh, there you are. Okay. Didn't see you back there.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Stair. Excuse me. I'd just like to say I'm so glad that our town council meetings aren't like what we've been seeing on television recently. They're much nicer here. I'm for the moratorium. I would like to see a moratorium passed tonight. I think that we really need to make a decision on whether to have a moratorium or not. If it can't pass for 2.5 years, amend it to 2 years, amend it to 1 year. I think that there's a lot that still needs to be discussed about signs in this town. For instance, why is it that 5 states now have prohibited new billboard construction? They seem to be doing okay, and others are doing a cap and replace function. That needs to be discussed. We need to discuss the issues of whether it's safe or not. I've given to the city council members links to scientific studies. Allegedly, there's a highway department study that says that it may be okay on the highways, although I think they may be referring to the emergency signs that sit right in front. These need to be discussed. Metro Plan has a recent study out on economic trends in central Arkansas that show, some people say that it would be economic Armageddon in North Little Rock if we put a restriction on it, and yet Conway, with its restrictive policy, seems to be doing better on all economic indicators in this report than the semi-regulated North Little Rock or the unregulated Jacksonville. So these all need to be discussed. And without a moratorium in place, what we're going to start getting is people queuing up to try and get special favors or to slip in and get a sign in the interim. And then we'll have more signs that won't match with some regulations that we may put in. There's a lot of room, I think, for compromise. My issues have been the speed with which the signs change from a safety issue. Maybe they don't need to change so frequently. Other people have issues with the aesthetics of the light shining in. Maybe we need to come up with better regulations for how bright they are. And I would like to say that I think that commerce can continue during this moratorium. I recently started going to my friend's place, but I didn't find out about it from the flashing sign. I found out about it the old-fashioned way when a couple of people told me about it and suggested I go there. I found it in the daytime. I didn't even know he had an electronic sign because I just found it in the old-fashioned way, looking on the map and what people told me. I don't think that these signs are necessary for commerce to continue, to thrive, and to grow. But I do think that a moratorium needs to be put in place soon so that we can have a business atmosphere where people can plan for the future and know what's coming. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got one more.
Robert Fury, Pontiac Drive, Indian Hills. I don't disagree with Mr. Ard or Mr. Yates or Mr. Stair. I think I don't think that this proposed legislation as written is improper. I don't think we need a moratorium until April 27th, 2011. There's some signs in the North Rock that I like, and there's a lot of signs I don't like. I don't like the sign on the freeway. I think that future land use across the I-40 could be impacted by that sign. I like Mr. Yates's sign. I don't like Cruise One sign. I can tell you which ones I like and which ones I don't like. You don't need a year and a half to figure out how to fix the problem. I think you need an effective committee which has gotten its start, and I think you can meet a few times and have it licked in a couple of months if you want to. Again, I don't disagree with anybody that's spoken. I would plead that you continue the committee and meet, expedite it, and not dilly-dally around. I don't think, I'm glad to see the ordinance say no later than April 27, 2011, but it's not inappropriate, but I would hope that we could fix it way before then, before it adversely impacts contributions to the economy from the sign companies. We just need effective land use controls, effective zoning, and an intelligent ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think that is that's all that we have on here. I know we went into public hearings, but we do have a special call that we need to post a special call. And if you would, please, Ms. Marshall, go ahead and call that.
Honorable members of the North Rock City Council, the purpose of this email is to advise you that Mayor Hayes has called a special meeting of the North Rock City Council for 7:05 p.m. on September 14, 2009 at City Hall, Council Chambers, North Rock, Arkansas. The following will be on the agenda: a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant from the Federal Aviation Administration for the North Rock Municipal Airport and for other purposes. Pursuant to Section 2-48(2) of the North Rock Municipal Code, you are entitled to 72 hours electronic notice of this meeting. Please acknowledge receipt of this email before noon on Friday, September 11, 2009 by replying to the same. A copy of your reply will automatically be sent to the city clerk, and all 8 have replied to this special call.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, I'm going to have to ask you here, is it proper to go ahead and ask Mr. Polk to come up now, or do we need to go ahead and get this before the council to vote on this?
Normally, when we have a special call, we'll go ahead and call it, and you can, call it, let it be read. If you have any questions, of course, then those questions can be answered. If not, then you can proceed with the vote on the resolution. Am I answering your question?
Do we call it?
Yes.
Let's call it. Okay.
This is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant from the Federal Aviation Administration for North Rock Municipal Airport. Resolution.
Move for adoption, but does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. I have a question.
I don't.
Alderman Height? Okay. Mr. Polk's here from North Rock Airport.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Or do you want me to explain this to you? I didn't hear what you
Yeah,
said.
if you could
back
just go
there.
ahead and just give us a brief summary of what it is.
Okay, every year we are allocated a sum of money from the FAA for airport improvement projects. This money, this $150,000 is actually 2004 money that we were given that we never used, and we have to use it before this fiscal year or we lose it. We've identified the two purposes that we need to use it for. One is to do a causation study on some ramp issues on the east ramp. We've got some erosion problems. The second function is to pay for a action plan preparation for the airport. Now, I probably said a lot y'all don't know what I'm saying, but I'll be glad to try to answer your questions. The city's match 5%. We can apply to the state to pay that at the end of the grant.
So it's not going to cost the city any money.
Correct.
We like that. All right. Any questions? No questions.
Thank you.
Call for vote.
Ross,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Baggett,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
and Witcher.
Yes.
Okay, now let's get back to the public hearings there. I've kind of skipped over this. This convene a public hearing on 0958. This is on parking ordinance. Over here. Let's see if we have anyone to speak on this. Does it look like we have anybody to speak on this? Well, yes, we do. Mr. Fury.
Robert Fury, Indian Hills. I'm just generally opposed to anything that happens in front of a home that has the potential for affecting property values. I know friends that have RVs, large RVs, and there are plenty of places to store them that are much more appropriate, and I hope my neighbors don't, if y'all allow RV parking close to the front of the house, I hope you, well, I hope you don't. I think that you probably have gotten phone calls from a few people that own RVs, and I think if you went to a referendum, which you're probably not going to do, you'd get a lot of opposition. I mean, you're going to hear from people that don't like it, an ordinance, but I'm going to stand up here and tell you I don't like RVs parking in front of houses and affecting my property value. Where I live in Indian Hills or on North Hills Boulevard. Thanks.
Thank you. And that looks like that's all we have on that one, so this, we'll adjourn this public hearing. We're going on to public hearing on 0960. It's on the Lakewood Recreational District, number 4. It's application for the parking district. I believe, Mr. Fury, you're the only one signed up for that one.
While Mr. Fury's coming up, Mayor, can I ask you a question? Since Lakewood is not represented tonight, are we going to schedule a public hearing for the next council meeting
Absolutely.
concerning this matter? And also, since we're doing that for the Lakewood recreational, since it has to do with the restricted parking district, can we have one more public hearing on the amended parking, amended ordinance number 8128 for next week, 2 weeks from now?
Sure. Ms. Marshall, will you make a note of that? Once a public hearing on 0958, and, no, wait, was that it? Which one did you want it on? On 0960, and what was the other one that you wanted it on?
It'd be 0958, which amends the ordinance 8128.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor.
all right.
Again, Robert Fury, Indian Hills, Pontiac Drive. I haven't done my homework on 0960. I just thought it had to do with RV parking. And if it has to do with RV parking, I'm going to sign up to speak against it. And I think there are appropriate places to park RVs. And again, I'm not a student of this ordinance, but if it has to do with RV parking near a front of a house, whether it's -60 or -58, I'm against it. I'll take advantage of having, 15 seconds of fame up here.
All right, thank you, you got it. All right, I think that's the only one that we had to sign up for that, and this adjourns this public hearing. Ms. Marshall has what?
Recess the meeting.
Recess the meeting. I'm sorry. My cheat sheet said adjourn.
Okay. Go to unfinished business.
Wait, just a sec, there was a question on, was it on the 064? No, we don't have a public hearing on that one, no. Okay, that's the end of our public hearings. Citizens' public comment, we have a few people that have signed up on that. Anyone that would like to speak, that anything on the agenda that has signed up, if you have not signed up, then we need to...
Are we doing it now or at the end?
No, this is the ones that you have signed up for on any item on the agenda that did not have a public hearing. You have signed up for, are you wanting to speak?
Are you talking about new business?
Anything that's on the agenda that doesn't have a public hearing, you can talk
Okay.
about it.
Okay, this is in reference to 09141. My name is Bill Yates. Never in my entire life have I struggled so long to honor my fellow man and had so much opposition from an elected official. The land I donated to the city was requested by the mayor. North Little Rock city officials drew up the deed and wrote the legal description. I wrote a letter of intent stating that the property only be used for a veterans memorial. Contrary to the North Little Rock Times, I never filed any paperwork with the Pulaski County concerning this property. If there was anything recorded with the Pulaski County, it was filed by the city. Of course, the North Little Rock Times has failed to report all of the facts when it comes to this issue. The public deserves an unbiased and accurate report. I have never been contacted by Jeremy Peppis in regards to any issue on this subject. The law requires or governs truth regarding advertisement, but unfortunately it doesn't pertain to stories in the news. Fortunately, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette has a little bit higher standard. Mayor Hayes has stated publicly that he does not favor 5501 as a location for this monument and has introduced legislation to form a committee to recommend the design and the site location. At the last meeting at the Hayes Center of the North Little Rock Veterans Advisory Committee, they voted unanimously for the location of 5501 to be a viable site for this monument. Now Mayor Hayes has introduced additional legislation to give the land back. This sends a clear message to that committee and to the citizens of this city that this monument will not be built at 5501 MacArthur Drive. The majority of the citizens that are informed and care want this memorial at 5501. There's documented proof of support of 5501 by every neighborhood crime watch association in this city with the exception of two. The North Little Rock Fire Department, Doc Holliday, Pulaski County Sheriff, and the Honorable Nick Bacon, Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, all want this memorial at 5501 MacArthur Drive. It is obvious that the mayor has put his own agenda above the will of the people once again.
Mr. Yates, we have the 3-minute limit. That's why I was trying to do the little 3-minute rule. I'm sorry, but we do,
I got
and it's
one
we're-
short sentence.
One short one. We're well over 3. There you go.
You should not prematurely give this land back because the committee, the mayor appointed and approved by this city council, has already voted to consider this site for the memorial of this Veterans Memorial. I urge you, the city council members, to listen to the overwhelming voice of the people and give the people what they want, instead of waving to the personal preference of one man.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Let's see, who else has signed up? Mr. Stair has signed up for 0964.
I'm like Mr. Fury. If it has to do with signs, I'll talk. So 0964 is an ordinance allowing an electronic changeable copy monument sign at 4105 East Broadway, which, according to the attachments, is a Little Caesars hot and ready large pizza. I'm opposed to this for a few reasons. One is, obviously, we're considering a moratorium. I think that this may be one of those efforts to sneak in between legislative situations. But I'll tell you the main reason why I'm against it can be, I'll read this. The request has not been reviewed by the sign board or planning commission. An applicant is seeking approval from the council. So my opposition can be summed up in the question, what makes them so special? I mean, the rest of the world has to go through the sign board, and the rest of the world has to go through the planning commission. So why didn't they go through the sign board and the planning commission? It's an interesting bit of timing that they would show up just tonight, when next month perhaps we'll have a moratorium in place, and then they'd have to go through the sign board and planning commission to get something different. And you might say, well, they really have to get it done right now. Well, you know, they're already putting electricity out to there. They can just make sure they have enough electricity for an electronic board if later on they're allowed to do so. But I'm also opposed to this business, it being an emergency. If you read Section 4, it says it's being necessary for the immediate preservation of the public health, safety, and welfare. Now really, a Little Caesars pizza joint being necessary for public health, safety, and welfare. I mean, let's just do a regular ordinance and read it a few times. And also, when I look at this is real interesting. Down here on the bottom, it says that it was dated June 30th, 2009. So they've had a couple of months to go through the sign board and the planning commission, and yet they chose to wait until tonight to try and get it done, sort of a legislative fiat. So I'm opposed to it. I think that they should have to go through all the usual commissions and boards that the rest of the businesses have to go through. And if it turns out that there is a moratorium on electronic signs, then they can put up a monument. And then later on, if it turns out that it's legal to do electronic signs, they should be able to fairly cheaply, inexpensively replace that with an electronic sign. That happens all the time. People upgrade. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more, Mr. Ard, on 09141.
I can answer it.
If you don't want to speak, you don't have to speak. No, that's on Mr. Yates.
Oh,
I think
okay.
That's the same one.
Which one did I do, Mr. Yates or the,
You signed up for 09141,
hang on.
which is the transfer of property at Mr. Yates'
Yeah.
property.
I feel y'all should wait until we get this settled with the committee, because I was there when they approved that it would be an acceptable site. And Mr. Yates means real well and real good, wanting to salute our soldiers. And I don't know why y'all keep on giving him the hassle and run around. And just look at it this way. What if your father or your mother or a brother or a relative or a close friend got killed? Would you want to show a little support for them protecting our country? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That completes our public comment. That's everyone that had signed up. We're moving on to unfinished business. Mrs. Marshall, would you call the first item? What?
I signed up for 64.
Okay, yeah, you did. Sorry. You had so many, I got confused.
Well, I have a lot of opinions. There is a moratorium on signage that's been in effect for a while, and it goes through September 30th. How can we allow new signs during a moratorium? I need to recheck my definition of moratorium.
Okay, now that does conclude public comment. Ms. Marshall, if you call the first item now.
R 09-118, Alderman Baggett and Gaines.
Please hold that, Mayor.
Want to hold that one? Okay. we're
Yes,
gonna-
please, thank you.
Is that hold it?
Yes, they want to hold it.
Okay.
Okay.
O 09-57, Alderman Witcher, Ross, White, and Taylor.
I think we'd like to read it one time, and then I think Ms. White has an amendment.
Okay. This is an ordinance declaring a moratorium on the issue of permits for electronic changeable copy signs in the city of North Little Rock, declaring an emergency. This is the second reading.
We have on our, each of us have an amendment from Alderman White, if she would like to introduce this.
The purpose of this amendment is to provide a schedule or a skeleton of how this committee will be handled. We will, as it says on the amendment, we will meet at least monthly, or at least bi-monthly. I need to read the parts, don't I? Sorry. Shall I read it? Go ahead. Okay.
You just want to explain it to them,
All right,
basically,
just
is what this
that
is.
we will be accountable to the public by having minutes kept by the Planning Commission, and those will be made available following approval at the next committee meeting. And we would like to have the right to meet every other month, but also every month if we need to. And this way, we can be more transparent, I believe, with the community about what's going on during this committee.
Are there any questions on this? Does anybody have any questions on the amendment?
Is there a second?
Oh.
Is there a second to
No, there's not a motion yet.
Move for adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I just want to make one comment.
Is your motion on the amendment? Or you?
On the amendment, and I've got a second here. I just want to say one thing, that, I mean, this is an excellent amendment, because, you know, I've heard things from, you're just doing this moratorium just to ban them, basically, for 2 years. That's not what we're doing. I know I've sat in on, you know, with Alderman Witcher and the other aldermen. This is to look at what we need to do, rather than do something wrong, to get it right the first time. And by having these meetings, that it advances it along, possibly not lasting 2 years. Maybe we'll come up with something sooner. But in the past, you know, we've had 6-month moratoriums, and we get to that, and then we don't want to keep having to extend the moratorium, coming back. And by 2 years, that gives us enough time where we are meeting at least bi-monthly. Call it.
Ross,
Yes?
White,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Gaines.
No.
Baggett,
No.
Height,
No.
and Witcher.
Yes.
It passes 5-3. All right. Let's see, we're going to hold that one.
This is not complete.
Where are
We
we?
only read it twice, so.
We only read it twice, I know, but we want to read it twice, and you wanted to hold that. Is that
That's
correct,
it.
Alderman
Just
Witcher?
want to hold
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
You want to
I think
hold it?
Second time. This is the second time.
It was read at the
We've read
last
it.
council meeting.
Okay. O 09-58, Alderman Height and Ross.
How many times have we read that?
One time.
One time.
It's been read
I
once.
want to read it one more time, but I want to amend it. On enter amendment. And each of y'all should have, I handed y'all a copy of the amendment a few minutes ago, and Mr. Carter, I'll allow you to explain this, but I want to address a couple of comments that Mr. Fury made earlier about RV vehicles. Any legislation concerning restricted parking of RV vehicles applies only to the parking districts if one is created. Only to parking districts if a parking district is created. And I want the other aldermen to understand that any legislation that we agree upon and approve concerning parking districts does not apply to the citywide ordinance that covers the rest of the city outside of the parking districts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to explain our amendment?
Sure, I'll try to run through it real quick, and I think part of the confusion that we were trying to get over is the difference between a common person's understanding of a front yard, right?
Right.
And then our zoning ordinance understanding and our parking ordinance understanding of a front yard. When we speak of a front yard, we speak of everything that is in front of your front building line. Pardon me. That includes your driveway, that includes all kinds of things, and our definitions were a little convoluted. Most people, I think, when they think about their front yard, they're really thinking about their front lawn, where the grass is. Can you or can you not park on the grass? So we tried to reshape the ordinance a little bit in a fashion that was more understandable and put the verbiage into a more understandable chart. I know if you remember last time I brought in a chart, it had 30 some odd blocks. We've cut that down in half to try to make it easier to understand, easier to wrap your hands around. And there are some matters that that require some explaining because the chart is more simplified. But I think overall it makes more sense. If you just look at the top where we're talking about just residential areas in general. As you know, just passenger vehicles are able to park on the street. That's fine in residential areas in the city. But recreational vehicles and commercial vehicles are not allowed to park on the street, except for loading and unloading, conducting business with commercial vehicles. And then we have a 72-hour rule for large recreational vehicles that you can park, you can extend into the street. You can't block traffic, but you can extend into the street for a period of time that's required to load and unload large recreational vehicles. As far as parking on the front lawn goes, recreational vehicles, just in general parking areas in the city without restricted districts, you can park on your front lawn. You can't park a commercial vehicle on your front lawn, but you can park a recreational vehicle or a passenger vehicle on your front lawn if that's necessary, somewhere that you need to park. Commercial vehicles still have to be parked behind the front building line. On side lawns, yes, you can park on the side lawn generally throughout the city. You can see big blocks to the right of that says, yes, you can park in your garage or carport, you can park in your backyard. You can never park on sidewalks and trails. There are people with handicaps who have to use those, and you're just not allowed to block those block access to sidewalks and trails. If you skip down to historic districts, really for parking on the street in historic district, the rules are the same as they are generally throughout the city. The difference is parking on front lawns and side lawns, and that's just prohibited. You can't do it. You can park on paved areas, but you can't park on, if this amendment is adopted, you would not be allowed, and I guess really the way that it is right now, whether this amendment's adopted or not, you can't park on your front yard, the lawn, and you can't park on your side lawn. You can only park on properly paved surfaces. For matters of simplicity, we've tried to set the first rule, restricted parking rule A, to match kind of the historic district. I think that makes enforcement easier. So there's not too many sets of rules that the code officers or other officers that we have regulating parking have to remember where you can park and where you can't park and what the rules are. We try to keep them as simple as possible. And then there's a restricted rule B that applies if a restricted district wants to adopt that rule that just excludes commercial vehicles from parking. You can see that on the chart. There won't be commercial vehicles parked there. The difference in the ordinance that you're looking at versus the amendment that's being proposed, a significant difference, is before this, if this amendment is not adopted, then the ordinance as proposed will extend that to both large recreational vehicles and commercial vehicles. There will be no, and I guess recreational vehicles in general, recreational vehicles and commercial vehicles will not be allowed to be parked in those areas, just like with the amendment, commercial vehicles are absolutely prohibited. I've talked a lot, and I don't know how much of that made sense and how much of it didn't make sense. And the best thing that I can do is answer questions at this juncture so we can find out how much of it did make sense.
I think if we don't adopt this amendment, the restricted parking districts, the restricted parking only really applies to large recreational vehicles, not recreational vehicles in general, as I think you just stated.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
One thing that this does, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just for people that watch on television, to reiterate, the only place that has a parking district right now is in Lakewood, is that right?
No, it's not even approved yet.
No, it hadn't been approved. That's the
It
only
has
place
not been
applying for
approved yet.
one. So it has nothing to do with anybody in the third ward at all.
No.
Thank you.
We have an agenda parking district. We have some rules for the historic districts that are in effect. Lakewood has applied, but no one else.
Just want to review that. Thank you.
And let me just kind of go along with Mr. Carter's answer is that we made it easy for improvement districts and property owner associations to create a parking district in the whole of the neighborhood that they govern, you might say. In the absence of a property owners association or improvement district, individual street or streets can create parking districts by circulating a petition in those streets or residences that are involved in those areas. So, for example, Indian Hills, who does not have a property owners association or improvement district, could segregate or divide themselves up into several parking districts if wanted to. For example, the whole of Pontiac, on both sides of Pontiac, could create a parking district by circulating a petition. If I remember correctly, the 67% of, I think it was 67% of the homeowners within the parking district must approve or support that parking district, if I'm correct there. But we made it easy for improvement districts and property owner associations to create parking districts. And basically, there are really only two areas in North Little Rock that probably will take advantage of that particular rule. That would be Lakewood and then ultimately possibly Overbrook.
Right, that's the difference between an application or a petition.
Yeah.
Right? If it's an organization with geographic responsibility, they can apply to create
Apply.
a restricted district. If you don't have, lacking that type of organization, then you have to go through the petition method, I think, which
Right.
you've described. But anybody in the city could do that block by block.
So parking districts really don't apply to areas that do not have property owners association or improvement districts. Now, if individual streets or streets down in the Levy area want to get together and circulate a petition in their area, they're welcome to do that.
You're correct, it requires two-thirds consent.
Two-thirds, yeah.
Okay. On this amendment, what Mr. Carter said, this was basic to clear up a lot of things. There was a lot of confusion when you say yard. We substituted yard for lawn to make sure that everyone understood that that was in there. Also on here, large recreational vehicles. That seems to be the biggest opposition or the most phone calls. I've been inundated with phone calls and emails, and I'm sure you all have, on this. And what we have done in this removes the option of adding the prohibition of large recreational vehicles from the parking district. When we adopted this parking district, you know, the ability for groups to form parking districts, I don't think we realized that when we did this, the large recreational vehicles, that included everyone. That wasn't the ones that have them on the side where you can't see them. Mr. Ostergaard, I wouldn't have even known he had one there, you know, but he would be prohibited from having it at his house. And rather than deny these people that have made the effort, they're to the side. We have a large sailboat in Ward 1 that is to the side. You wouldn't even know that it was there. They would have to move that. And rather than to lose what this was originally intended for, was to get the cars off the lawns in the parking district, I do not want to take the chance of losing that over the large RVs. This is something, this is baby steps. That's what I'm looking at right now. One thing at a time. We can't go in and it needs to be a phase-out period, in my opinion, if you do want to do that, to remove the large recreational vehicles from the area. personally, I just don't think it's right to go and tell someone that you've lived here for 20 years, you've had this large recreational vehicle for 20 years, and now overnight you've got to move it. I mean, there's expense. If it does have to be on a proper parking surface. It cannot be parked in the yard. So this is where this amendment is coming from. I don't want to deprive these people that have made good faith efforts to have it stored on proper parking surfaces. This is not to say that I wouldn't want one to walk out my door every day and try to look down the street and I couldn't see it on the street. And so this is what this amendment is about. I just want to make sure everybody understands before we vote on this. Any questions?
So, I move that we amend 0959 with this amendment.
Second.
On the amendment, Ross,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Baggett,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
and Witcher.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, do we want to read it now for the second time?
Do I need a motion for the second reading?
Yeah, move we suspend the rules, place on second reading.
Second.
Ross,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Baggett,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
and Witcher.
Yes.
Okay.
This is an ordinance amending ordinance number 8128, the parking ordinance, second reading as amended.
I'll hold that to the,
Do what?
hold that.
Yeah, yeah, right. We want to hold that for the next time.
Okay. 00960, Alderwoman Ross.
Please call that. Wait, how many times? It's been read once. Yes, please call it.
This is an ordinance establishing the Lakewood Restricted Parking District, declaring an emergency, second reading.
I'm going to hold that also for next time. The Lakewood Recreational Improvement District Board is meeting tonight, and they could not be here, so I'm going to hold that so that they can be here, and we will vote on that next time. We can also, if we could, convene a public hearing on that one more time, just to make sure that everybody's had a chance to speak on that, especially after the amendment. Give you a chance here.
Okay, new business, R09140, Mayor Hayes.
Please call that.
This is a
Read
resolution authorizing the purchase of additional temporary speed humps for allocation to each ward in the city of North Little Rock, appropriating funds.
Wait, I think we're, no,
140.
Oops,
She's out.
sorry, I'm on the wrong line.
140.
Sorry. Now, R09140, a resolution approving financial management plan for transferring funds and adjusting budget amounts in the 2004 to 2009 CDBG programs.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Second. We have some questions.
See if she might
We have
want to
Ms.
explain
Bowman
it.
here with us tonight.
Every year, every couple of years, we come before you asking to transfer some funds, and these funds are, when we finished a project, we might have, in one case, like $181 left or $35, or so what we're asking is the ones that we finished, transfer them to another project, which we've asked for most of the funds to go into the handicap ramp project. Anything that was left over in a ward, street and drainage project will continue in that ward's next project. And it's identified on that second page down at the bottom. $3,776.72 goes to handicap ramp, and $37.50 goes to the sidewalk, and then $370.18 goes toward 2 9th Street. This just kind of cleans up our records.
Anybody have any questions?
Like clean records.
Call it.
Ross,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Taylor, Robinson,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Baggett,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
and Witcher.
Yes.
R09141, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
A resolution disclaiming the transfer of certain property located on West Military Drive.
Ma'am?
Yes, sir.
My personal opinion is that I would like to hold this piece of legislation until we have a formal recommendation from the Veterans Committee,
Okay?
or at least hold it this reading. And I guess that brings me to the next question is, are we going to get a recommendation formally?
We are, but it will not be by the next council meeting.
Well,
We will before December, by December. Probably before then, perhaps.
Well, it can stay on the agenda for 6 times, so we can either hold it or, let's just hold it and then we'll see if we've moved on any further on the,
Okay.
from the committee, any recommendations from the committee.
I'm sorry, one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Having to do with the deed that he provided, has that been filed at the courthouse, and have we accepted it?
I don't know whether anything's been filed at the courthouse or not. I was under the perception that it might have, it may not be. I'm not sure. I think, it's my understanding that, our planning staff got this document prepared whenever Mr. Yates was trying to move forward with the construction of a monument on his site. And of course, we've always had the legal opinion that we can't invest public money on private property. And I think that was the workaround to say, okay, well, we can facilitate this and make it go faster. If we just, transfer the property to the city, then the city would own it, and we could move forward and get this Veterans Monument built. And I think in the public discourse somewhere, the idea was created to come up with a Veterans Committee and to think about this in a more comprehensive fashion. So the property's been tied up. I mean, it's been offered to the city as a donation by Mr. Yates. Based on his recent comments, I think that he still offers that donation. It seems that he does. We don't have a recommendation back from the Veterans Advisory Committee, but at the same time, I think some measure of work was beginning on the site. We normally don't allow people to build things on public property, so it was my perception, my understanding that was conveyed to me, and I really can't tell you who conveyed it to me. I just really can't tell you where I got that from. Was that Mr. Yates had accrued donations. He was ready to proceed without the city. In such case, the property should be given back to him where he can build what he wants to build. So I think probably what we need is just a more, constructive, productive discourse with Mr. Yates as to what he wants to do with this property, and then also some input from the Veterans Memorial Committee as to where they think the suitable location for the memorial ought to be. And I think once we get to a point of understanding on those issues, then we'll have a better idea about what the disposition of the property should be.
Okay,
Alderman Witcher will go this
all
way.
right, my recollection is that you can actually deed just about anything to someone, but unless they accept it, then you don't have transfer. Is that?
And let me answer your question directly, is yes. Yes,
Okay.
you are correct. Because if not, then every person with a contaminated piece of property would want to deed it to someone else and let it be their problem. So the normal routine for the city is that if somebody donates us property, we go through a method of accepting that donation. It was never done with this, so the title is clouded to the property at this point to say who owns it. It has clearly been offered, but the city has not taken an affirmative step to accept it. We have not taken an affirmative step to disclaim it. So there it is.
Okay, so his title is clouded until that action is taken.
I think that it is.
Okay.
Alderman Baggett.
Mayor, Mr. Carter, if he removed this concrete off of the property there, would that clear that up, or?
Well, I think there's a more fundamental issue beyond just a piece of concrete that is on the property, is to say who is going to move forward with building a monument at that site. A whole lot of that's based on Mr. Yates' intent, and it's based on recommendations that are going to come out of Veterans Memorial Advisory Committee, and I think we have to find out what those are before we know who's going to proceed with what on that site. I mean, I was kind of under the impression that first the city was going to proceed, and then once work has started, I took that to mean that Mr. Yates was going to proceed without the city, that we should transfer the property back to him, disclaim it, acknowledge that he's getting that done. But based on his comments tonight, I'm not sure that's what his position is. So I think we just need to better understand where everybody stands, possibly before we take action on this.
And just a quick follow-up, did your office or anybody that you know of file any paperwork with the county concerning this?
I'm not sure whether it's filed with the county or not. It may be. I know that I've seen a deed. I've seen a deed, and deeds are normally filed at the county. And that's normally what we do. We file deeds at the county, but that's not to say that that's been followed through with.
Thank you.
Alderman Gaines.
There's nothing wrong, since this has gone on, Jason, for 2 years, with us leaving the status quo like it is. Mr. Yates, the way I understand it, does not intend to do anything else on the property this time. We've gone, I think that, I can't speak for him, but I think the understanding was that by the mayor and y'all accepting this, the way I understand, I think he thought, and I think I did too, that the city had accepted that through the mayor's office, and of course, I'm incorrect about that. So my point is, the Monument Committee meets again tomorrow night. We'll have a better time frame, and don't just not get us involved in this right now, I think would be a wise thing if we could, and even for the next time, if you talk to the mayor about maybe withdrawing this, or, just let us. Sure. It's gone 2 years, so to me, it doesn't seem a reason why we just can't wait 2 or 3 months. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, Alderman Height.
I was just going to ask you, can you find out by the next council meeting, Mr. Carter, who actually owns this piece of property?
I think just title is clouded at this juncture. I mean, it's been tendered, but it hasn't been accepted. And
Can you
hasn't
clear
been
up the cloudy? Can you clear up the cloudiness?
I think this council has to clear up the cloudiness.
So we have to accept it.
It's not for me to alienate property of the city.
Understand that. Then if indeed the city owns it, then has Mr. Yates broken any city statutes?
And I don't know.
By
I mean,
improving
I think what we'd have to do is just to dig more into the facts before I could render an opinion for you on that.
I agree, Boomer.
Alderman Gaines.
Never mind. I think everybody's ready. I think that we're going to let this alone, I would suspect, even though Alderman Hyde has excellent questions, but I think we just move on like we were and we'll figure it out. Because, but I guess I do want to ask, though, from now on, we'll know if anyone gives us anything, it has to come from this council. Is that right?
It does.
Okay.
It does. And I mean, these circumstances are pretty rare. I've had it before. I had a guy get mad and his solution was to deed us property, and then won on his appeal and wanted me to give it back to him. And I said, I can't do that. You have to go to city council. I don't have any authority to do that.
Do you feel comfortable then, even though the other mayor's not here tonight, that we can proceed without any problem for the next few months with this, since we've gone for 2 years? Wouldn't you think that would be a logical?
Right. I think that the only reason why this was brought up is because there was the perception that Mr. Yates wanted to proceed without the city because work was being done, and he needed to be given his property back so he could proceed with an unclouded title. I think that was the intent.
The
intent was not to slight anyone.
So we feel comfortable then, let's leaving this like it is for a little bit?
Well, I think if he's saying that he still tenders the gift, if he's affirming that he's still doing that, then
okay,
so be it.
So be it. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to hold that till next time. Would you please call the next item?
Ordinance 0963, Mayor Hayes.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Has anyone asked him what he wants us to do?
He didn't want it back, what he told me. He's right there if he wants to.
Let's come, Mr. Yates.
Yeah.
You want to come and
Yeah.
let us ask you a question?
Mr. Yates, I think I'm sounding like I'm going through a change of life, but I'm not. Well, maybe I am. Okay, do you in fact want the property back, or do you want us to continue holding it until a decision is made?
I want the North Little Rock Veterans Memorial placed at that location. And if that means deeding the property to the city, which I've already done, I intend to do that. Now, let me clarify one thing as far as Mr. Carter is concerned about work being tendered. All that's been done to that property is a pedestal has been placed there with a silhouette, with an extension cord and a light. Okay? Now, as far as construction of the property still lies, lays, and is in the same condition that it was when it was deeded to the city. Now, if this council does not want that statue, that silhouette, and that pedestal honoring our troops there in the interim, let it be known now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yates. We're going to hold this unless there was any other questions. I guess that's it. Last call. Okay, we're going to hold that. Now, would you please read the next item?
00963, Mayor Hayes.
Read that one time and hold it, please.
This is an ordinance establishing our general downtown central business improvement district number 31 of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading. And there is a public hearing scheduled for 9/28/09.
Thank you. And public hearing will be held on that.
Okay.
Okay, please call the next one.
00964, Alderman Taylor.
Please call it.
This is an ordinance allowing an electronic changeable copy monument sign at 4105 East Broadway Street in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
I'd like to give a brief explanation or attempt to with the assistance of Mr. Carter and Mr. Voiles, if he would be so gracious to assist me. What happened here was no fault of the applicant. They submitted an application for a sign. It was submitted through the planning department, and they explained exactly what it was that they wanted to do, but we, the city and the planning department, we overlooked the fact that there was an application for an electronic changeable sign. So therefore, the applicant went out and spent a substantial amount of money having a sign installed, buying software, preparing the mount and what have you. Turned the sign on, and then Cole drove by, saw the sign, said, hey, you can't do that. And the applicant says, hey, well, what do you mean we can't do it? We've already spent the money. You guys told us we can do it, and now you're telling us we can't. So this ordinance is to fix a mistake that we made, not to try to slight someone or slide someone under the radar because of the moratorium. It's to fix a mistake that we made.
Alderman Robinson, did you have something?
Well, he explained it. I was going to ask him the question, as to why, we have this legislation. And I think that if it was a mistake that we made where we issued a permit to someone and that person went out and they spent all the money to put the sign up, then I guess it's unfair, in my opinion, to go back and say, take it down. So I appreciate knowing, the reason why we're sponsoring this.
Just one short comment.
Sure.
I think the city council learned today about learned a good lesson today about making mistakes.
We did.
And I think if we have a chance here to make a wrong a right, we ought to do so. So I move that we suspend the rules and place this on second reading.
Second.
Ross.
Maury has his hand up.
Alderman Witcher had a question
Okay, all right.
or comment.
Are you proposing to place any restrictions on the sign regarding how often it changes or anything like that?
Say again?
Mr. Boyles needs to come up on that one then.
Robert?
The owner of the company's here, and he has read through our sign code. We met with him and others last week, and they understand we have a 15-second agreed to honor that. But he's here if you would like to talk with the person.
I guess what I'm thinking about is, you know, as we go down the road regarding changeable copy signs, you know, we may or may not choose to have a time longer than 15 seconds. And I would hate to go ahead and pass on this sign on a 15-second premise at this time, and it being a new sign in particular, and then in 5 or 6 months decide, you know, that we only want them to change every 12 hours or once every 24 hours. And I guess that's really the question and the thought that I'm posing to you is, you know, would you consider something more restrictive at this time to be changed if we don't stretch out the time on changeable copy signs if they are permitted?
Well, just like Alderman Height said earlier, that I think we should today should be an example of how we should conduct ourselves. I mean, there is an ordinance in place that says, you know, there's a minimum of maximum 15 seconds change time. So, you know, the applicant has already spent the money, he already has the sign in place, and he's already abiding by the existing ordinance. So, you know, we don't know what's down the road. So I think if he's complying with what we already have, you know, I think he's okay.
I think that the owner made a good faith effort. I mean, it was, like you said, it was an error, and we need to fix that error as far as I'm concerned. It's time, and it will just be one more that's grandfathered in at the time.
What about the moratorium that runs to September 30th?
There is a moratorium.
Till September 30th, is that right?
There is a moratorium in place. That's why this is being presented for your consideration. If there were not a moratorium in place and it just goes through the usual permitting process.
Mr. Boyles, can you...
This needed to be raised to your level because you can see the application that was submitted, I think, that's been distributed and attached to it. I think when our planning people just looked at it, it just looked like a sign. And the problem is down at the bottom, and you see the 20 millimeter color LED display is in there, and that's the part that we didn't catch.
Mr. Boyles, is that what happened? I mean, just thought it was just a monument sign with no... Or we're just trying to figure out how this happened.
That's correct. The applicant came in, you know, we were under the impression they were coming in for a monument sign. They went to the planning staff the next day, the sign company did. The sign company has to take out the application, and it was presented. Staff thought that it was a monument sign, and it was erected as a LED sign. I saw it the first day it was turned on and called the company and told them there was a mistake made. So we tried to correct it immediately and realize our mistake.
So did you have the same picture that we have here? I mean, when it was approved? I mean, is it the same one? I mean, I'm just curious what they submitted to you that you thought that it was a monument sign as opposed to...
I wasn't the actual staff person approving the sign permit at the time. I do think this was what was presented, and you have to read down to under the block lettering to determine that it was, but I think they believed it was just a monument sign and unaware that it was an LED being proposed. And it was approved. The sign went up immediately. I contacted the company and told them that, you know, we have a problem, and we do have a problem. And that's why this was suggested as a way to correct that problem.
Mr. Carter?
I'd just like to add, also to the credit of our local sign companies, this was not a local sign company who pressed forward with this application, because it is a little disturbing they'd put that in such small print for LED, like they're, you know, makes you wonder if somebody was trying to slip something through on you. But this was not one of our local sign companies that ran this application.
Thank you, Missouri.
Alderman Height?
I can't find the word monument on either of these two
Well, monument by our definition means ground-mounted, not taller than...
Okay, so your other staff personnel, they looked at this,
Yes,
okay?
and they could see that that was...
A monument sign.
Fits in the dimensions of a monument.
Okay, now, how much time elapsed between the time that your staff person approved this and the sign was erected?
A month?
6 weeks.
Okay, can I ask the applicant a question?
My name is Mike Fritz from Little Caesars. How are you?
I'm doing well. When you got word that the planning department had approved your application for this sign, at what point in time did you order that sign?
Only after the word was given that we had received approval, at which time we made a substantial down payment. Started with underground wiring and fiber optic cable on the site construction. Ordered software, started preparing artwork, waited about 6 weeks for the sign to be delivered, and then commenced with the installation.
And you can answer this if you want to, you don't have
Yes,
to
sir.
if you want to. Approximate cost of this sign?
A lot. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. I will say that it's tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any other questions? I have one question for Mr. Carter. There is a moratorium. It was approved, but the city council can override the moratorium to...
Yes, that's why this is being presented for you.
Okay, all right, that was...
If there were no moratorium, like I said, it would be just permitted through the regular sign permit process. It would not return here for an ordinance that would give it the ability to exist.
Okay.
So all this is doing is correcting the mistake that was made in planning, correct? Okay. Alderman Witcher?
Mayor, practice law again. For your general information, whatever we adopt by ordinance supersedes what was already on the table. And so, even though we have a moratorium, if this in fact passes, then, it's okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's okay.
But I think planning has the, they realize now that there's no more, correctly? Okay. Call the vote.
Ross.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Gaines. Baggett.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
No.
Move to suspend rules, place on the third reading.
Second.
Ross.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Baggett.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
And Witcher.
So,
This is an ordinance allowing electronic changeable copy monument sign at 4105 East Broadway Street in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
On the third reading, isn't it?
Third reading.
This is
Alderman Witcher has a question.
The owner of the sign, may I ask him a couple of questions? Something just occurred to me.
You want to ask the owner of the sign?
Yes.
Oh.
I remember your friendly face from previous discussions we've had regarding these signs. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Was it 2 or 4 weeks ago you were before the council talking about LED signs?
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago? Okay. Did you know about the prohibition prior to that?
I did not. The construction and application for this permit, we approached as we do with any of our construction sites. We go through our design process, we submit for signage. It was only until we received the notice of the violation from city representatives that we became aware, at least that I personally became aware of the moratorium.
Okay. All right. One other comment?
Yes, sir.
My grandson's favorite pizza.
Thank you.
Do we move?
Okay, are we on our third reading?
Does somebody need the motion?
So moved, whatever it is.
We have a second?
Second?
Okay. This is an ordinance allowing electronic changeable copy monument sign at 4105 East Broadway Street in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading. Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
Witcher?
No.
On the emergency, Ross?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Baggett?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
And Witcher? So are your legislation.
Okay, that's the end of our business tonight. Does any of the council members have anything that they want to discuss? Alderman White?
I want to take the chance to say thank you to a lot of people who on Saturday did some real serious alley cleanup. This was spearheaded by Gardner Methodist Church along with City Fest. And I just want to mention, I have an email here saying all the groups that were involved in this from the church. And those, the alleys that were cleaned up were 3 alleys, Chandler, Shear, and Marion between 15th and 18th, and they look incredible. They've done a wonderful job, and it was very hard work. The group, it's the North Little Rock Ministerial Alliance, Park Hill Christian, Park Hill Presbyterian, Gardner Methodist, Gardner Memorial Methodist Church, Lakewood Methodist Church, River City Church, Liberty Fellowship, Shepherd of the Hills, Silver City Outreach. In addition, we had Fellowship Bible Church, Holt Neighborhood Association, Argenta, CDC. Also thanks to Liberty Centennial Bank. They donated lunch. Liberty Fellowship prepared and served lunch, and Arkansas Enterprises for Developmentally Disabled Adults provided grounds for the lunch. The Argenta CDC also provided a lot of the things needed for this, and the North Little Rock provided orange cones and picked up all the trash. So thank you to all those people from the City Fest and Gardner Memorial.
And we really appreciate it in Ward 1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Baggett, we'll start this way.
Remember that there's an election going on, a school board election between Scott Miller and Margot Tanner. I think that's Zone 2. That will be tomorrow at your appropriate polling places. I don't know where that is exactly, but get out and vote. Don't forget to vote.
Did you look at anybody
Alderman
else? Did you find
Gaines,
anybody
you've
else?
been patiently waiting.
Well, we wanted to recognize Jimmy Ard. He was concerned about whether the city of North Little Rock has to comply with state and city construction requirements, and the city attorney's told us we had. He had a correspondence with us, and we just wanted to let him know at the end of it that if any city businesses that we do, that we have, Mr. Ard have to comply with permits and do everything they're supposed to in their in the day that they do it. So thank you, Mr. Ard.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got public comment. Let's see, we've got Scott Miller.
Thank you. I'm Scott Miller. Alderman Baggett sort of stole a little bit of my thunder. I just wanted to remind everybody to go vote tomorrow. Zone 2 is Bering Cross, south of 12th Street, Argenta, Sherman Park, East Washington, and then Rose City, south of Lynch Drive. You can't help but be motivated if you spend some time in our schools by the young people. I spent some time in Mr. Parker's 7th grade elementary classroom, 5th grade at 7th grade elementary, listening to President Obama's speech. I had a discussion with those students 2 weeks ago. My wife and I read at 7th grade elementary for last Friday's service, and my daughter's with me because we just got back from open house up at Lakewood Middle. You can't help but be inspired by the young people. And I am running for school board because I want to share in that inspiration. I want to work towards our better schools. More importantly, just as important, I want to improve upon the relationships that our school district has with our city. And just let me say, we can't have good schools without a good city, and we can't have a good city recruiting good businesses without good schools. They go hand in hand, and the education of our children, in no large part, is dependent upon how we work together as a city and school district. And we can help them, and they can help us tremendously. So that's the reason I'm running, and please, everyone go vote. Traditionally low turnout. Just for record, the city, North Little Rock School District has a budget twice what you guys approve every year for your city budget. That's how important it is for your money and your property tax money. Thank you.
Mr. Ard?
Mr. Witcher, thank you for standing up for my friend's place. I appreciate it. Since the city does have in place that they're supposed to go by their own rules and regulations, why did they get caught with their pants down again at the RV park? This is an ongoing thing. This is not the only place they do stuff and don't get it inspected. We've got a good electrical inspector now. He does make them do stuff by code. We have a good plumbing inspector. I have no quarrels with city employees doing the work. I can get a homeowner's permit and do my work. City should have the same right and get a permit and do their work. But why don't they do what they're supposed to? Little Rock does. This looks bad on our city. Now, if you can't enforce it, maybe you need to be back in court like you were today. And I hope you did learn a lesson. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Yates, did you have any further comments? Oh. And then we have Mr. Weisenstein. Did I pronounce it right? Yes, ma'am. Good.
I'm a relatively new resident of the city. I live over at the Enclave, and I see a lot of good things happening here. I have the opportunity of looking out over the river every morning, and I enjoy that. The parks are very pretty, and I see that there's a lot of things going the right direction. There is one concern, though it seems to be growing, and it's the homeless people that populate the parks, the park benches, the bridge, and it's getting to the point where people don't want to walk in the evenings because everybody's scurrying to find their bed space under the bridges, park benches. I know this is a growing problem all over the country, and I don't know what the solution is, but I sure hate to see it when people are afraid to walk in the parks or even up the street, because I took the bus one day and there was some lady laying on the bench and she asked me for food, and I don't know what the answer is, but I sure would like to see maybe some sort of study done that we got a lot of empty buildings. Can those be set up as shelters to get them off of the pretty areas where people are free to walk and not really be in fear of their safety? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Weisenstein, I know Chief Bradley back there, Chief of Police, is sitting back there, and I know that he's aware of the problem. I've sent pictures to him that people have sent to me of the different things that are going on in the area, and I know he's aware of it, and he's working. They've made several strides in that. I mean, I know it's hard to see. It's like you said, it's a national problem, and we do have a homeless task force committee with Little Rock and North Little Rock, and they are working on it. So, but Chief Bradley is back there. If you'd like to express any concerns to him, anything in particular, he'd be more than happy to talk to you.
Well, I'm not an expert on it,
but you can give your
I'm
input.
retired, so if you could use my help on anything, you know, although I'm enjoying retirement, so I travel a lot.
Right.
But I'd be willing to help if I can.
Okay. Thank you, and I'm sure Chief Bradley would appreciate any help he could get.
I know they got a tough problem. I've talked to some of the officers that live over there, and it is a tough thing. You know, what do you do with them?
Yes.
But if some shelters could be set up and ways of motivating them to get them back in the workforce, so that's really, I think, a key to the solution. Some of them may not be possible, obviously, but they need help in other ways. So if I can help, let me know.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing
And
that
that concludes the, you got anything?
Move adjourn.
So moved, let's move. Meeting
Cross,
adjourned.
White, Taylor.
Yes.
Robinson. Gaines. Baggett. Height. And Richard.
Yes.
Oh, you embarrass me. You would embarrass me. No, don't you dare.
I'm going to ask you to quit.